Feeling well, man.
What's your name?
My name is Cardi Cornish.
And you a legend?
I'm a legend.
You're a legend here in Baltimore City. Where we at right now?
We live in the 17, Pennsylvania Avenue. The legendary Pennsylvania Avenue.
Man, the last time I saw you here, you were doing something just across the street here. What were you doing?
Oh yeah, I had some food left over from an event. We brung it out. We fed a couple of people, man.
Why you do that?
Nice soul food. Huh?
Why you do that?
Man, the love that God has shown me in Christ, man, it overflows. That's how it overflows.
That's right.
We got more than we can use.
Already was high within Sandtown, Winchester community, but the age group is getting younger. Children under the age of 18 being murdered in Sandtown has a high peak right now. So our goal is to catch the children.
You going hard, man. You going hard on that man today. So what do you think, Mr. Mayor? You got manufacturing right here, helping our young people despite all of the challenges in the city of Baltimore, right here on North Avenue.
Nah, it's really about the growth. Just knowing being there when they were down in Port Covington and seeing how far it's grown. Like you said earlier, like getting the sorbet, where we got the sorbet at the beginning, but now being able to, when I'm at Canada Yards, get it, or anytime I'm down at Harbor Place to get it, and folks to not even know, but they gonna know now that like this is coming from young people in West Baltimore, right there in West Baltimore on North Avenue, where they think nothing great comes from, but they can see it in what the young people do.
Here on the bank of Mississippi, with our very dear friend Floyd Mathis. A beautiful town, just leaving Algiers, which is an update 10 years since Katrina. All right, y'all, this is what I came to New York for. Besides the Black Wall Street Awards, we're going in here and get some of this real good jerk chicken. Johnny Glover, out.
I feel the warmth of your skin. Just the touch of your hand makes me tremble within.
But we need to feed our loved ones. DOTS needs to rescind this package policy program so that our loved ones are able to eat every day in that filthy facility that
we have some stars in the building.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, in it to win it for the long haul, baby. Very special guest today, Venroy July. He's a member partner at Dickinson Wright PLLC's Washington, D.C. office. Venroy handles a wide range of corporate and finance matters for his clients, assisting clients at all stages of the life cycle, from formation to fundraising to acquisition and or exit. He represents companies, both public and private, operating in the transportation, information technology, healthcare, oil and gas, government contracting, cybersecurity, banking and technology industries, on an array of matters, including equity and asset sales and purchases, leverage buyouts, restructurings, joint ventures, debt offerings, and licensing transactions. Venroy also regularly helps clients with other business needs, including various forms of loan transactions, compliance with U.S. securities laws, and general commercial matters. Venroy has been selected as best lawyers in America for corporate law, the Baltimore Business Journal's Who's Who in Law, the National Bar Association's 40 Under 40, and as the Daily Record's Leadership in Law's Generation JD Award. He has a JD degree from Duke University School of Law, and his bachelor's is from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Without further ado, all the way from Jamaica, Wagwan, Venroy July. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Doni. How are you doing?
Doing good. I apologize for the delay. I was visiting with Sandman. I don't know if you know who Sandman is.
I do. It's all good.
Okay.
We're all human. You need rest.
Yeah.
You need rest, bro.
Yeah. I'm working on my 4th book, Venroy. And sometimes I get the urge to write late night and, you know, all kinds of hours. But the 4th one is going to be a woozy. This is going to be the most comical one ever. But nonetheless, listen, I'm watching the social media and I see that beyond the election, and that's why you're on this show today. I've written a piece over the years called Elections Don't Make Leaders. Some people get elected and it's like, so what? The mark of a leader is win or lose, because actually I ran for office back in 1998 for State Central Committee. I was still a wild kid running the streets and wasn't really ready, but it was my introduction. And I've been involved in politics ever since. And so when I see your editorial, your op-ed about the Poppleton community and getting people involved and drumming up business, bringing people together. I'm sorry, Venroy, that's why you're on the show. What have you been doing since the election?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, what I've been doing, in honesty, is tied to why I had run for city council. I have lived in the Highlands Market community for the past 9 years. And so I kind of just really understood what was missing in that community. And I had been over the years trying to do work to try to benefit that community. Because quite frankly, it felt very much like that neighborhood and rest of the communities in the 9th district had kind of been forgotten about. And quite frankly, a part of those communities being forgotten about is that, if we are thoughtful and intentional about what we're doing, it does provide potential opportunities. And so over the course of the past 9 years, I had been acquiring, single family homes because, I wanted to create an area within Baltimore that I could aggregate basically other young Black professionals in those communities for a myriad of reasons. And that neighborhood was a place that I thought I could do it for, a variety of reasons, including the fact that costs were lower than some of the other parts of the city. And I think we've done a pretty good job over the course of the last 9 years. And so, what you saw was just basically a Facebook post of mine where I was just talking about, what I had been doing and some of the obstacles and some of the name calling and some of the attacks that I'd experienced in the past, but, kind of sharing the bigger vision for what can happen here in Baltimore.
You're right. 9 years ago, I bought my first house in Baltimore with no intent to buy more. Then I saw that a prominent figure was buying up properties in my neighborhood. So I figured there must be a plan. So I bought other houses. I'd seen this before in New York and DC. Then I tried to get others to buy over here, but no one was interested. I want to stop right there. Have you figured out why? And I'm just putting it out there. And people can get mad. I'm just calling it like I see it. It is virtually impossible to get an educated, upwardly mobile Black woman to move to an evolving community like Poppleton, like Sandtown. But a white girl will. Have you run into that? Or is it, my imagination running away with it?
So I'm not going there with you, Doni. However, I mean, look, I have definitely seen the difference in terms of the first tend to be able to benefit from, right? And so I actually understand why. I don't just think it's black women. I think black men as well, because I wasn't just trying to get black women to move here. I was trying to get black men to move over here as well. And the reality is that I think a lot
That's a
of
good point. I'd have to back up. I'd have to back up on it. I'd have to agree.
Right. I think there's a hesitation because I think it's actually much deeper. And so I don't like kind of beat people up about this, but I'll tell you an actual story. When I was first, after a couple of years after I started buying houses, I was literally trying to get some of my friends to buy properties over here. And, I had actually convinced a couple to buy houses at auction. A friend of mine, her parents actually bought a house, and then her sister-in-law actually bought the house beside them. And they were doing well. But prior to that, that same friend, I was trying to get her to move over into one of the houses that I was renovating, and I had connected her to a bank. I'm not going to say the bank. It was a bank in Baltimore. And essentially the bank said to her, look, Venroy can box. Venroy can feel okay in that neighborhood because he feels comfortable because he can fight. That's not a place that you necessarily want to be moving over as a single woman. And so there was some her banker, someone from the bank who I had connected her with told her that. And so I think a lot of it is justifiable. I don't agree with that bank telling her that, but I understand the point, right? The reality is that there's some protection. People for people to move into some of these communities early, there needs to be some sense of protection, right? My sense of protection was not that I thought about it, but I feel comfortable that I can defend myself. Obviously, those are limits, but I knew that I could go into a neighborhood, and there is some benefit to that, right? I think that, people from majority communities also feel some sense of protection because, quite frankly, I think there's some belief that if something were to happen to them, the police would be on top of it. And I don't know that black women and some black men feel the same kind of urgency if something were to happen to them, the responsiveness to their concerns. And so that's kind of where I have kind of just come down as maybe that's the reason why we're not willing to do it. But I'll tell you, it ultimately ends up hurting us because we always see, and I mentioned it in my post, I've seen this happen before in multiple cities where I've lived, where, we are in our communities are unwilling to kind of take the initial steps to try to develop those communities. And then, white, residents come by and fix the places up, and then those neighborhoods change. And then we turn around in a decade because it's not quick. It doesn't happen in a year or two. And in a decade, we're like, oh man, we missed out on that again. Well, the reason is because a lot of that stuff, it took 10 years to happen. And quite frankly, I think that's also a piece is that because of our economic positions in this country, I think a lot of us aren't able to kind of see the long haul and think, oh, this is going to be a great investment in 10 to 15 years from now. But that's how long this stuff kind of takes. Let me just
jump in. Here in Sandtown on my block, we don't have, I won't say there's zero violence, but everybody knows everybody. It's a family concept here. So we know what's going on with each other. We look out for each other. I will tell you, there was a time when they sold coke, dope, and Ready Rock on this block. But I can tell you that hasn't been done in 20 years. And I will tell you, it took the men in the block to stand up, including Brother Bay, who is no longer with us, Brother Ellsworth Bay. But we don't have that on this block. And in terms of violence, I feel safer here than in other parts of the state, prominent parts of the state. I will also tell you that I have a different attitude today about white people coming in. As long as you take care of your property, I don't care what you are. Now, there was a time I was as black and white as Baltimore is, as Baltimore's history, because this is the home of segregation. But there are now white people that live on this block. There are now Latino people that live on this block. There's some Latinos who are working on a house across the street. And you say 10 years, try 25 years. Is how long we've been waiting to see progress. And lastly, like you, I know it won't happen without me participating, particularly in community groups. We just got a hello from Tracy Malone there. She's, after I did my work, she came along and I just bounced past it to her. So she's now the president of the Sandtown Winchester Collective. So similar to you, I had to go out and find my team, and whose team, you know, who was on my team. And there are people out there like that. At the same time, I saw a white lady walking down the alley one night, blew my damn mind. I'm like, white lady, what are you doing? You don't walk in the alley.
Listen, I hate to say it, but I mean, I have similar experiences. Like when I first bought my house, or the first house that I bought here, and, you know, like again, I bought it because it was like so cheap. Like I don't want to give any like false delusions. Like I wasn't buying like $150,000 houses. I was buying stuff that was like 50-something thousand, which to me was such a crazy number because I'm coming from New York and DC. You never saw that, right? Like those numbers were just absurd. And so I remember like in my younger years, and it wasn't that I wasn't like, oh, they you know, you can't be here. But I remember like when I first bought my first house and I had fixed it up, and then I had seen that, you know, the person had bought up all these properties. I remember like seeing like all white running groups running through my neighborhood, and I would like take video like, this is like to see this in this neighborhood all of a sudden to me was like some indication that something was happening. And so I kept buying houses, but it's hard, right? Like I do have the benefit of, you know, being an attorney, so I can kind of understand what's going on with like the deal the documents with the acquisition. I have a good income that I can hold me over during the tough times, because trust and believe, like this real estate development is, especially if you're not on like getting capital from like the state or the government or from big financiers, it is very, very hard. Like it is very hard. And I had plenty of tough times, like months, years. 2018 was a tough year. And where you're putting out money, no money coming back. And so I just remember, so you have to have basically like some backstop to be able to give you some protection during those tough times. But, you know, being able to have the thought of like, okay, this is a 10-year, 15-year process. I posted in my post, I said, you know, after 9 years, it finally feels like it's starting to come together. We're not in the clear. I still have tough months. I still have tough months now, but I see where the trajectory and where the path is. And so, you know, it's hard to get this kind of stuff done. And it's just a matter of whether or not there are people who are willing to kind of persevere and deal with it. Because I know people who might have come in. You hear the story, Doni. People come in and they want to be a developer. They think they're going to come into these neighborhoods and do development. And they get in and they start a deal and it start getting overruns. People start, you know, they just have difficulty after difficulty and they get out of it. You got to have some kind of perseverance to understand what can happen in our communities in order to kind of what it needs to push through to try to, you know, help to revitalize those communities. So, well,
I'll tell you what, I have watched Brooklyn, but I have been to Harlem, and I've had people, one guy was a former drug dealer, quite frankly, and he said he remembers when those brownstones were going for cheap, but he and other black people didn't want to buy them. They had the money. They making cake, they making bacon, they making dough, but they didn't want to buy the brownstones. So now that you see white people jogging up Lenox, up Malcolm X, jogging up 125th, now that you see the Whole Foods there on Malcolm X Boulevard, shut up. You had your chance. Same in Brooklyn. They had a chance in Brooklyn. I mean, Brooklyn, damn, Baltimore got a reputation, but so do Brooklyn.
Johnny, so you're hitting on, so it's funny, and I talk about this all the time, right? So I just want to give you like my path in America, right? Or my path, in America. So I'm from Jamaica originally. So I moved from Jamaica.
Yo, let me talk to you around the corner, man. We love Jamaica, man.
Definitely. So I moved from Jamaica and then moved to the Bronx, New York, in the 90s, in 95. And people know, like, or people might not know, but the Bronx was terrible. New York generally was terrible. Like, people talk about the murder rate here. Like, I challenge people to go and kind of look at the murder rate in like New York back in like the 70s, basically through the 90s, right? And then I moved from New York I went down south for school in North Carolina, so at Chapel Hill and Duke, at UNC Chapel Hill, and then Duke for law school. And Durham, back in that time, was terrible. Like, we would go out to hang out at clubs, and there would be shootings like happening not too far from us, or like right where we were. And so you see that. And then I moved to DC in 2007 to start working at the law firm that I was working at that time. And then I moved to Baltimore in 2011, right? And I always say I think my path is in large part based on what on that particular trajectory of my time in America, right? So if you think about it, I was in New York basically right before gentrification really hit. Like, right before Brooklyn, Harlem really started changing. I was there. I saw what the neighborhoods were like. I was hanging out in Brooklyn. I was hanging out in Harlem. I saw what it was like then, and I saw very quickly what it looked like a decade later. I was in Durham, same time, 2007, right before it really started like transforming and developing. Right now, I was just down at Duke I'm on the association board for the law school, the alumni association board for the law school. And, there are museums and art galleries and all these things that are there. Like, there were times that I was driving, I did not even recognize those areas that I had gone to school where I had hung out and where I had partied. And so the reality is so I was in Durham right before, when it was really bad, right before it changed. And then I went to DC for 2011 to 2011. And I say this, so I used to box professionally, but I started fighting. Started boxing as an amateur in DC. And I remember that there was a gym that I used to go to that was in the bottom of a church called Keeley's Boxing. And Keeley's Boxing was in Columbia Heights, Maryland. I remember taking the subway or the metro to get off on the Green Line to walk to the train station. I remember getting off of Columbia Heights train station and having to watch my back to see what was happening, because that neighborhood was dangerous. And we now have seen what has happened in Columbia Heights, which is now one of the more developed and more better parts of town. And so I saw this happen. So when I got to Baltimore, I was like, oh, this feels very familiar. I've seen this before. I've seen this happen in New York. I've seen this happen in Durham. I've seen this happen in DC. And so, yes, even though to me, it was like, oh, Baltimore got all the assets. We have proximity to New York. We have proximity to Philly. We have proximity to DC. The federal government is in DC. That ain't going anywhere. We're underwater, right? We are an urban community. We can get to these places. We have great art. We have good food. We have great food. We had all these pieces that were individually kind of, exciting, but nothing was had like pulled it all together. And so for me, I was like, oh, it's going to take a while, but we can't wait. We don't have the benefit of waiting, which is what we historically have done. You asked the first question about why we don't jump in earlier. We wait until we've seen it turn before we jump into those. Too late. It's way too late. We can't afford it. I can't afford it. Like, I know everybody was like, oh man, why? When I came to this side of town, everyone was asking me, you know, why are you going over there? There's all this other movement going on in other parts of town. And quite frankly, my response has been and continues to be to this day, I can't afford to compete over there. At some point, I could only buy one house probably if I was trying to compete in Fells Point or Fed Hill or Canton or any of the neighborhoods that have already started to
See, those
change.
houses are small, Venroy.
I know, but I can't compete there. So I'm not trying to.
I think they're overpriced. And for me, they're in a flood zone. 03, when Hurricane Isabel hit, those houses were underwater. They're in a flood zone.
Look, everybody has to have their own strategy about what they're looking at from real estate development standpoint. For me, it's not just about, like, I came in, I'll tell you, like, I did not come to Baltimore with an expectation of doing real estate development. In fact, I tell this jokingly. I had bought, trying to be responsible when I came out of law school. And this just goes to show you how different the banking market was back then versus what it is now. In 2007, I graduated from law school, having never worked a single full-time job in my entire life because I had gone straight through undergrad to law school. A bank gave me a loan, a prominent bank gave me a loan for $350,000 based strictly on my offer letter. No background of like work, no background of like my job, of like pay stubs, no, just based on, and I wasn't even in town. I was in Durham on the phone, and they gave me a loan to buy a property in Branch Avenue, so in Suitland, Maryland. So which is very close. I was across from the train station, the subway station in DC. I could get to DC at my job within 17 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, right? And they were just giving money away back then. So I bought a house. But anybody who's followed the market understands that I bought in September of 2007 for 300. Huh?
This was amidst the mortgage lending crisis.
This was right before I choke. I bought basically at the top of the market, and then it collapsed.
Yeah.
And so at one point, the house that I had bought for some $300,000+, I looked on Zillow, and I know that's not 100% correct, but it was like worth like $170,000 within like a year and a half. And so I came to Baltimore being very jaded. Remember, so I bought in 2007. I moved to Baltimore in 2011. So I did not come 4 years. I was still in the midst of significant losses on paper from my real estate, my first house that I had bought. And so I came here like no interest in buying a property again. I actually had an apartment in Laurel when I first started working here because I lived there for like a year and a half. And then I had an apartment downtown, like in the 414 Water Street building, because I was never buying another house again because I had gotten burned back then on paper. But eventually it was just so clear to me, like, man, this Baltimore has so much richness. We have so many assets and it's so cheap. Like, and I've seen this before. And so a friend of mine, actually, to show you, it was a white lady that first introduced me to the community that I'm in. She had a company, she had a ed tech company, and she was a friend, a client, and she said, you should come and look over in this neighborhood. They have a strong community association, and there's some, the things look like they're changing. She had a house over here. She recommended that I come take a look. I came and I realized immediately we're right around the street from University of Maryland. I was like, well, that's that's a good thing.
That's an asset.
That's an asset. We're right by the highway. That's an asset.
Another asset.
And we're a mile from downtown. So
walking distance.
I saw all these things and I was like, yeah, I'll take a chance. Hey, Doni, I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, it did. It did go blank for me. Same here. So I wanted to share. Look, did you know that Durham was one of the 3 official Black Wall Streets?
I did know that.
They were made famous by North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance. It was Durham, Richmond, and of course Tulsa.
Yep.
And then another thing you mentioned was that got me to thinking was how, you know, we've been working on this neighborhood for 25 years or so. The house next door is worth $182,000. The challenge is the vacants. Any thoughts on these slumlords? These people who refuse to get rid of properties. I have a meeting prayerfully coming up with Alice Kennedy, me and Tracy Malone to speak about some of it, because we got more vacants in Sandtown than anywhere. What can be done about the son of a gun who is like criminal? The houses catch on fire. Addicts go in there to get high. You always told what you can't do. You can't do this. You can't do that. I was told it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. We had to block this stuff off because the city was no help.
Yeah.
What do you do when you have a landlord who's negligent and hasn't touched the property in 15, 20 years?
Yeah. So I listen, this is something that I think about all the time. Quite frankly, we should actually look to what other cities have done. Other cities are doing this thing. So like I know, like in DC, for instance, they have basically a different tax structure for basically a property that is occupied or like functioning versus a property that's like vacant versus a property that's just like a bane to the community. So to the extent that these properties are left and are in such disrepair that they're actually causing harm to the communities, I'm actually all in favor for this idea of like creating additional taxes for those companies for those kind of vacant properties, because you're right. But I do have to, there is a balancing act right here. Like, so I actually think people don't appreciate that sometimes there are properties that are like individual developers that come in and just are over their head. and Doni, I'm sure you've seen it. I know so many people who are like, they're gonna come into Baltimore and buy a property, and there's so much opportunity here, and they're gonna fix up a house, and that's what they're gonna do and make money. And they're not trying to be greedy. They just come and they just don't know what the heck they're doing, and then ultimately get caught up. I think there has to be a two-sided approach here. I think you have to punish people who are doing this habitually and who have properties and aren't doing it and are causing destruction to our communities, because no matter how nice my property is, if I have 2 properties beside me that are vacant, it doesn't matter. Rats are going to come, and the insurance is harder. It's going to be more expensive, and nobody's going to want to come and try to fix up these neighborhoods. And so it's actually going to cause the value of my properties to go down, right? And so I think you have to punish those people. But I think you also have to think about, like, how do you actually create incentives to help people to actually do the work? Baltimore basically needs, and I think about this all the time, quite frankly, we need like basically an army of like small developers who are going to attack these properties and who are going to do it in a way that is not only for sale rental, but also not for sale properties, but for rental. Because I think Baltimore is missing a prime opportunity as being like basically a sleeper town for a place like DC, right? Like, if I know that I can live in Baltimore and get on a train and be in DC and work for 45 minutes and be at work in 45 minutes, Baltimore becomes much more attractive to me. I think of Baltimore the same way I think of New Jersey and New York, right? People will live in Jersey and they will take the train or driving from New Jersey to New York because they can get the money in New York and go back out to Jersey. Now, Jersey's prices are going up as well, but it's still so much more competitive, right? And so I think that we need to be incentivizing people to actually develop these properties in ways that make sense. And the city has done things which I don't think has made any sense. I think they've started to do things that I just don't think it's been very well thought through. I think they're trying, though, right? But I don't think they're getting enough input from the people who are on the ground doing this type of work. And I think you have to make sure that you're actually disincentivizing slumlords. But it's a myriad issues around the real estate piece, and I've gone through it as a landlord because I buy and hold. I'm renting. I'm not just buying and flipping. I buy and I invest in these properties and I rent to people. And so, there are myriad things that the city should be doing in order to create better situations for active development in the communities that we care about.
Last week on the show, we had Milan Griffin. Do you know Milan Griffin?
I don't.
She's the COO at Home Free USA.
Okay.
And she's looking to develop some developers. Trying to get us into the real estate game. I need to connect you with her.
I think I actually just signed up for a class, like a developer's course that they're doing. I literally just got some. So I got like notification on Facebook, and I think I just signed up for that like 2 days.
You got notification in the past couple of days?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I signed up last week, and I'm looking forward to it. But let's move to this. Right across the street from me, I live in 1100 block of North Carrollton Avenue. I saw Latinos come in, and if they started in June and this is September, man, they gutted this house. This house had no roof. And I will tell you, I admire the teamwork, the cooperation. They had women carrying boulders, like on the Flintstones. The women were driving pickup trucks and carrying out loads of rocks. The women. So the dudes couldn't be outdone. I mean, at least ego-wise. And I'm just saying, I just love the teamwork and cooperation that I saw with this group of Latinos. And at least 3 generations I saw. There was the baby, I saw the grandpapa, and then I saw the workers. Family-oriented, big old trucks. They ain't got a little skimpy little pickup. Them pickup trucks with 2 double wheels on the back. And I just wondered, damn, what happened to us?
I mean, honestly, you're having some of the same experiences and realizations that I've had. And I'll tell you, it's actually very worrying to me, quite frankly, because and I think it's two-sided, right? Like, I'll tell you that I have historically tried to, use Black workers, because the reality is that I've always thought if we're going to talk and preach about Black Wall Street, a big reason why that was successful historically has been the circulation of dollars within our community. And so I have gone out of my way to use Black contractors. And I
got to jump in. Before you get to the money, that spirit has to be right.
So
if it's just about that money, it has to be about the spirit first.
But
those people in Tulsa, that's what I was told early on, that if you don't have the spirit of God in you, it can never work. It'll never work. Those people were on the same page. It was more sacrifice, more willingness to cooperate. Okay, Venroy needs some sugar. Okay, take him this sugar, but tell him I need some flour. Love, unconditional agape love. You come from Jamaica, way up in the mountains, Nani the Maroon Queen, sacrifice. Man, we have become so soft, so selfish, so individualistic. I'm scared to help you, because now you're going to be better off than me, and your house going to look better than my house. Petty, real petty. So Willie Lynch bullshit.
So I don't think that we have difference of opinion on this. I think I come from it in a bit of a different way, right? I think that the reality is that this society has actually done a masterful job on dividing Black people, and we don't trust each other. We don't want to work with each other, and even when we do try to work with each other, oftentimes we come with it with the same kind of hesitations around, how do we work together? Some of the things that you've talked about, but we do it, and there's no kind of sense of like, oh, community, I'm going to help this guy out because it helps us out. There is this fragmentation where there's no thought of the collective anymore. There's no thought of the us. We are kind of, as you mentioned, kind of very individualistic, and it hurts because even when you are trying to do things for the community, everybody comes in with a sense of skepticism. People call me, I'll tell you this, like, this is a perfect segue. When I came over here and I was posting about me, you can go back to my Facebook messages or my Facebook post from 7 years ago, when I was telling people, hey, y'all need to come and look and buy over here. This is a great neighborhood. We got a lot of development. Y'all should come. You come help me try to build up this community. I can't tell you how many times Black people were attacking me and calling me a gentrifier, or and it just goes to the mentality, gentrifier. When I was running for city council, people were on Twitter calling me I'm not on Twitter very often, but people have sent it to me and I got wind of it, calling me a gentrifier and calling me a carpetbagger. I was confused. I actually had to go and Google what a carpetbagger was. A carpetbagger is someone that moves into a community and tries to run for political office because they see a potential there of them winning for political purposes.
But there's a difference.
I lived in this neighborhood for 9 years.
It's different when you done put your money where your mouth is.
I lived in the neighborhood for 9 years. I'm like, this is the longest carpetbagging ever. If this was a strategy, this is the longest. But I go to say, it's like,
I'm sorry you had that experience, and considering, I mean, you've seen. Come on, man. Let's be honest. In America, unless you've been to the Mississippi Delta, unless you've been to the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia, we haven't really seen poverty. We haven't seen poor. We haven't seen people living in straw shacks. Unless you've been to Africa, we don't know how fortunate we are in this country.
Poverty definitely looks different as I said, I'm from Jamaica, so I grew up in Jamaica. I've been to the malls. I've seen people who houses, zinc houses, that if a hurricane come blow your zinc roof off, you have no roof. Like, I've lived in those experiences. I have been there. I think poverty does look different in America, in Baltimore, than it does in other communities. I think that the reality,
real poverty is in our thinking.
I think America has done there's been a masterful job done in the Black community to cause us to not trust each other, to think with a scarcity mindset, that it's almost like, in some respects, and we have to change this, which is one of the things. I was having a conversation about this literally last night, that it's almost like we don't believe that we should have better. We buy into this idea that, like, the way that our communities are right now, and quite frankly, it's reflective of some of the election decisions that we make. And I know you made the point earlier about, elections don't make leaders, but leaders need people who are actually going to be there and rock with them, right? And the reality is that there is a sense of, we do things because this is what we have always had, and this is what we deserve. Like, we don't deserve better. We deserve better. We deserve communities that are developed. We deserve to work together. Like, you talked about the idea that you see your Hispanic the contractor is working. I have some Hispanic contractors. I have pictures in my phone where there are women helping the men hoist an AC unit up on the roof. And it actually made me think a lot about like how are those communities doing so much better than Black communities just fine, like in terms of like,
because we caught up. We're caught up.
But think about this, Donnie. I realized this. I said, look, the reality is that all those, and people complain about it all the time, and I heard this on the campaign trail as well, right? People say, oh, they have all of them living in that house. Yeah. All of those people who are working on that property are living in that house. And what does that mean? That means every dollar that we're paying is in that one household. It's not disaggregated. And so
we used to be like that, Venroy. We used to be like that.
Yeah.
But now, so I got to add this in. Another part of this conversation. The best and brightest in West Baltimore over the past 50 years since integration, 55 years, Randallstown.
Yep.
They moved out to Woodlawn. They moved out to Owens Mills.
Yep.
And that's fine. All of my family lives out there. But right now, too many of them think that the fight is over.
No, yep.
There's a classic thing going there right now. Montgomery and Prince George's County have nearly 1 million people. They have 11 county council members in Montgomery and Prince George's. Baltimore County has 855,000 people. They have not increased the number of council people out there in over 54 years. They have 7. I've been working with people in Baltimore County to increase their number of county council people to 11 people. But the Black elected officials out there have been dragging their ass because we get out Liberty Road and we think we ain't got to fight no more. That's what happened. And honestly, Baltimore City is more politically astute than the Black people out Liberty Road. Take that to the bank. And if I'm wrong, I welcome you to come on this show. But we move out there. We move to Owens Mills. We don't know who the council person is. We don't know who the U.S. Senator is. We don't know who the state senator is. We don't know nothing. We just know we live in Owens Mills. We got a white picket fence. We got grass. Instead of triggers, rats, and roaches, you got bunny, rabbit, deer, and foxes. And we've arrived.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't.
And you can't say that, but I can say that.
I just don't know.
I want you to run for office again.
I don't know that to be true, but I will say this: from my experience, I wouldn't give as much credit as we do to the electorate here in Baltimore City, quite frankly, because we saw, right, like, and I don't want this to be too political. It is what it is. We lost an election, and it is fine. The reality is that when I was door knocking, the vast majority of people that we interacted with had no idea who their council member was. And yet the reality is that the people voted in part because just name recognition. I mean, that's the biggest thing. There is a system where people who are the other incumbents, they work together, and I'll say this frankly, I had people who were in power, who were elected officials, who said to me that they know that the 9th district is in a bad state, but they explicitly said, but we can't vote for you because we're rocking with the 40th district group. And so, yeah, we might, I think we can say, oh, we go to the county, we forget, but
well, it's a 2-term limit, so
I guess ultimately the point is, and quite frankly, let's be clear, I'm not even sure. Yeah, this has been a very difficult campaign, and not sure that that's necessarily in my future. But the reality,
but you could be a political kingmaker.
Well, at this point, I'm back to doing what I was doing before. I'm working at my law firm and trying to develop this community, and let's just talk about that. I just don't know, but I just don't know that like people even if they know, they don't. They were not willing to change. I mean, you look at the numbers of the
There's
voters.
more than one way to skin a cat, young
I hear
man.
you,
Let me tell you.
but just also remember that, like in Baltimore City, I think it was 24% of the electorate that showed up to vote. And so, if we're talking about then 24% across the city, like trust and believe that the neighborhoods that are more developed, they had higher rates. And so, in the poorer parts of town, the number was lower. And so, we just have to
Maybe we got to give them something to vote for. When Obama ran for office, I saw the voting lines out the door. See, people are tired in Baltimore. We've seen politicians, we've seen scandals, we've seen them get selfish over Xboxes and vacation homes in Harford County. We've seen a lot of chicanery from people we otherwise loved and adored.
Yeah, no.
We've seen delegates get locked up for $15,000. And you're like, damn, man.
No.
15,000? You doing that bad? And talking all that smack? So we're scarred, we're traumatized, but you a family now. You done paid your dues, your initiation is over, and you get say in this community because I said so.
Look, as I said,
welcome, bienvenido.
Nah, man, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I know that.
And you've been holding meetings, man. I saw the pictures of the meetings. Let's give us some more of your editorial. Because only a couple of paragraphs here. Hold up. Because you made a couple of points in there, and I think people need to. Here we go. Said, then I started being bothered that for a city that was 60% black, there was not an area that we controlled and where we all could hang out. Now, I got to tell you, a lot of us black people, we mess up. We get a good spot, and then we want to, be shooting up every damn thing. I had this idea that I wanted to build a Black Wall Street too, and that's what just, I fell in love with this piece here of Venroy. So after years of prodding, I convinced another Jamaican property owner to sell me a block of properties. I raised capital from friends and family and bought the block. Then, when I was running for city council, apart from the obvious issues of vacancy, I realized the lack of economic activity in these communities. And that's where I really wanted to get to you about. You are familiar with the Black Butterfly. That's West Baltimore, that's East Baltimore. Yep. And then you got the White L, which goes from Johns Hopkins University straight down to the harbor and then over to East Harbor.
Yep.
It sickens me when a state senator, and I don't care who it is, 40th, 41st, 43rd, whatever. When you tell me you can't put amenities in my neighborhood, a new school, a new recreation center, because we don't have the population. Damn all that. I've seen what was done in North and Charles. North and Charles, white people invested in North and Charles overnight, and some hippie carpetbaggers, because they don't live here, ended up taking over North and Charles, and then this whole new vibe. You wouldn't see white people in North and Charles, but that shows you what happens when you have political will and the financial investment. So right now, we got this West North Avenue Development Authority, thanks to Senator Hayes, thanks to Westmore, and then before Westmore, thanks to Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford. Today, Governor Westmore's put $28 million, 17 recently, 11 last time, in the West North Avenue, the first investment ever. See, this hatred, because this is all out of hatred, racial hatred, goes back to 1910. And the mayor, J. Barry Mahul, came with this ordinance. Blacks couldn't move in the white neighborhoods. Whites couldn't move in the black neighborhoods behind one damn neighborhood, Roland Park. And they are just as funky and as racist today as they were in 1910. Not all of them, but too many of them. And I'll just shut down with this. Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So they might not be racist, but if you ain't saying nothing about your racist ass cousin, then you're a problem. Just like me. If I don't say nothing about the drug deal, we've had to stand up to the dope man around here, man.
Look, I think I mean, it's very clear that Baltimore is very clear about Baltimore's racist history. I mean, everybody knows, or at least people should know, it's not very difficult to find about what has happened in this city. And I think that is very true, right? You do need political assistance in order to kind of bring the capital into some of these neighborhoods. But I think a part of it also is that we as a community need to like be more thoughtful about just our understanding of economics and how they work in terms of communities, right?
Is Baltimore anti-business?
I don't know if they're anti-business. I think they're anti-business in certain parts of town. I mean, when I walk
business ignorant.
When you walk through the 9th district, it's very clear there are not a lot of businesses here. I mean, and I say that because like you have to think about what are the repercussions of that, right? You talk about the red line and the lack of access to like jobs. Well, if there were jobs within the communities, within these neighborhoods that were scalable and large enough to employ multiple people, not just the companies that are, and look, small business are important, but having 1 or 2 employees isn't going to cut it, right? If people can't get to the jobs because they're so far away, they're all on the east side or they are all in the harbor, then that's difficult. And so you have to think about what happens, what is the impact of not creating an environment that people can start businesses. And all of this stuff is interrelated, right? Like people are not going to start businesses if there are a bunch of vacants in the block. Right, they're not coming there because with those vacants often comes crime, often comes loitering. Who wants to open up a business there? And so I think we just like are very short-sighted in the ways that we think about what economic development looks like for our communities. Yeah, you might complain about people call me a gentrifier, but what does that mean? It means that you don't want your neighborhoods to develop. You don't want me to eliminate the vacants that are there. You don't want me to eliminate the boarded up buildings and the buildings that have caught on fire.
I would have to ask the person who called you a gentrifier, what in the hell are you doing?
Listen, I'm not going to call any names, but I've been called a gentrifier by multiple black women and black men.
What are they doing to make the neighborhood better? You are putting your money where your mouth is and buying property. I would dismiss them with the swiftness because that's the kind of talk that keeps us stuck on stupid.
I don't disagree.
I know you, and I know damn well that you come from Jamaica. We don't. Too many of us, we go to Jamaica for some damn. I went to Jamaica with some African Americans. You know what they wanted to eat? A damn chicken box. I was like, you could have stayed home for that. Let's get some of this ackee and saltfish. Let's get some of this red snapper.
My goodness, yam and dumpling and banana. That's what you have to deal with.
Pineapples falling off the trees. We have been so colonized that we just have stinking thinking. And but the white man ice is colder. We'll run out there and get a $1,500 Louis Vuitton bag. When I was in Ethiopia, Coach bag was buying their leather from the Ethiopian herdsmen and their goats. The same leather you selling Coach bags that they're made of comes straight out of Ethiopia.
Look,
that leather. But we would never think that. And I'm Louis Vuitton. I'm Coach bag. Man.
Look, I mean,
we're good at buying, ain't too good at producing.
The thinking that you're talking about is really real. Like, and I can't tell you, like, as I'm trying to do this.
I want to go to Dubai. Them Arabs will sell your black ass quicker than a New York second. Dubai. But the Latinos, I come through Eastern Avenue, they know what to do. Broadway, Eastern Avenue, they build on what they got. I'm watching them. We used to be like that. We done got soft.
I just think that we have to change our way of thinking. But I think, quite frankly, it's the same. What I'm trying to do here is the same thing as what has historically happened, right? We just need to see somebody else do it first because black people have been traumatized and been burnt so often that we don't believe it can happen. And so I'm being very intentional about the work that I'm trying to do here because I want to make sure that people see and understand that if we work together, if we kind of stick to it, we can get it done. And not in a way, because the reality is that Black Wall Street has never been and never was only exclusive to Black people. And quite frankly, it doesn't work economically. Like it can't be a place that only Black people feel like they can come to. We want to make sure that we're creating business, economic opportunities for our communities, but we are trying to do it in a way that is that benefits the community. A part of the community is we need to, I'll be very clear, we need to have people from the University of Maryland. We bought the 1000 block of West Baltimore Street. That's been like the biggest development project that I'm working on now. Me, a couple of my friends pulled some capital, and we bought the 1000 block of West Baltimore Street. We are trying to right now we have all Black commercial tenants for the spaces that we have leased up, and we're very clear. I think there's a connection between what the new development that happened at Hollins Market and the University of Maryland. And people don't want to pay attention, but we have to think big picture as a part of our development. The reason why I came to this neighborhood was because I saw University of Maryland was right there, and the state was gonna be able to prop up or give financial support to the University of Maryland. They're never gonna want that institution, the biopark, to go to hell. And so we have to be thoughtful. A part of our thesis, 100%, is we have to get people from the University of Maryland to feel comfortable coming and patronizing our businesses. And as a part of that, if they feel comfortable walking from the University of Maryland along our block, which is now going to be developed, they will go to Hollins Market. And so it actually benefits not only Hollins Market, but it benefits the Black businesses that we're trying to create on the block by creating an area where where it's thriving economically, and there's a district, a business district. I think that there's benefits that are going to inure both to the community and to the businesses that we're trying to put there. But we just have to be thoughtful about the ways that we're doing it. Like we cannot continue to not want to. So I was having a conversation yesterday with a woman who was, she was very smart, and she was coming from a great viewpoint. Like it was all positive that she was trying to express. But she said, as you're thinking about this, you need to understand that very often, as you said, Doni, Black people we don't provide Black businesses grace. Like if one mess up and we're done with them, we done dealing with them. And I don't think that we should.
But also, I got to put the onus on them white people. They've done some racist ass shit to Black communities historically. My daughter was born at University of Maryland, and they ain't the kindest white people in the world. Some of them might as well have Klansmen hoods on, the way they treat Black people and the way they treat the entire community. So they don't get a pass. Catherine Pugh got locked up. Them damn white male board members, they did the same damn thing, and not a damn thing happened to them. So we know who them damn people are too.
But we also got to be smarter about, I just acknowledge that. I've acknowledged that reality and the discrepancy in how we are treated versus how the majority is treated for years. And so that's honestly why I often get so disappointed when I see our politicians, our representatives get caught up in these scandals for just minimal amount of money. I'm like, but why? It's like,
but Venroy, this is just the beginning, and your run for city council was not in vain. I've never seen you as a carpetbagger. I met you first in the business community, and to see a young Black lawyer, then I later find out you're a boxer. To hell with them people. You have invested more in this city than probably their whole damn family combined. So we dismiss the foolishness. And plus you stand on the shoulders of Nani, the Maroon Queen. You know that's one of my heroes.
Absolutely.
Keep doing what you're doing. How can people get in touch with you?
Look, if you want to get in contact with me, you can email me, venjuly@gmail.com. And obviously I'm on social media, just my name, Venroy. But yeah, look, we're trying to build something here. Quite frankly, we need people to ultimately, once we're done here, to come and support. If we want to have something that we can point to as like being a place that young Black professionals and others can come and enjoy and we own and control, then I think that this provides a great opportunity. And so we're just trying to make that happen.
There's some good white people, there's some good black people, and then there's some horrible black people that I will push in the harbor with the horrible white people.
That's correct.
So we want the good people who love. And you know what we didn't say? You can walk to the stadium.
You can walk this. I mean, I'll just pinpoint that, because this is the part that I just when I'm doing the work, it's like so obvious to me. I mean, the reality is that when you think about this community and why I think there's so much potential, we're a block or two away from the biopark. We're right by the highway to get to 295 and 95. We're 5 to 10 minutes away from the MARC train station, which gets you down to DC. Right, we are 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes away from the Charles Street Amtrak station. We're a mile from downtown. We are a mile to the football stadium, the baseball stadium, the casino. There's just so much. There are all these assets that are right there. You know, we have the biopark is one side, Grace Medical Center, Bonds.
I'm sorry, Venroy. I don't see the casino as an asset. Maybe for tourists, but I see a lot of damn depressed people up in the casino.
Agreed. But for people who are coming into town, who are going to be going to the casino, it's still it's something that's attractive to them. And quite frankly, Doni, even that point, right? Like, don't be fooled. The casino is not a standalone. I promise you, in 10 years, that will become. Maybe not 10. If I'm forward looking, that whole stretch is going to become the entertainment district of Baltimore City. They have a football stadium, baseball stadium, casino, and the music venue that they're going to build over there, and the Top Golf. So that together is going to become the entertainment. They're going to build. I've seen plans. They're going to build like more development along that area. That will become the entertainment district of the city. And so if I'm thinking long term about where the potential value is, that is where tourists are going to come and go to football, baseball, the Top Golf, the music venues. Like, that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Like, we can't just get too bogged down.
I'd like some good
individual pieces right now. We have to think about what do these individual pieces on this chessboard look like in a couple steps.
I hope some eateries, some food markets.
I think all of that has to come. I don't have any inside plan, but if I'm just looking at, like, if I'm a city developer, if I'm a developer, I see all those other assets. There has to be a way to link all of that.
And a Starbucks. I like a Starbucks.
You can't like Starbucks. Starbucks are root of all gentrification. Don't you know that, Doni?
Man, black people buy more Starbucks than anybody. Them white people need to stop playing with that BS. They said that out Liberty Road, black people don't support big body. That's just some racist old white people bullshit. Black people buy damn Starbucks. Tell them go on with that bull.
I drink Starbucks. That's all I say.
Damn right, you like a good Starbucks. Much love, Venroy. VenJuly@gmail.
Yes, sir.
Good deal. And we just getting started, brother. Hope the folks enjoy the show. Up to date, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it. Hey, man, who do you take in Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez? That's a hell of a fight, man.
I think Canelo is slowing a bit, but I think Canelo is slowing a bit, and I think Terrence is a hell of a fighter. My only concern is the size, because he didn't look too good against a bigger guy that he just fought. But I think Terrence ultimately takes it. I just think he's too smart.
I can't turn on Canelo. I've been with Canelo a long time. I can't turn on Canelo.
Hey, man, Terrence surprised a lot of people what he did to Errol Spence. And so
he broke him down like a shotgun.
He did. And I don't think a lot of people saw that happen. So I can't root against my man Terrence. He's just so smart, and he just adapts so good.
And humble. Very humble.
I mean, when you come from Omaha, Nebraska, they talk about some poverty. He lived in some poverty. So
he's a real humble champion, though. I will say that about Bud. Up to date, down tomorrow, do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Special thank you to Musaid O'Banion for your comments throughout the show. Good morning, world.